Welcome to the Panic Room, where we talk about all things panic-inducing. I am the Queen of Panic. Warning, some episodes may contain content that may be disturbing to others. Viewer discretion is advised. Now let the games begin.
Until a few days ago, I had no idea that this actually happened to me. I'm not going to talk about the gruesome indirect circumstances that triggered this to start haunting me in flashbacks, but I will rather focus on the story itself, how I remember it, and how my cousin, who was with me when it happened, remembers it. For some context, my cousin and I are the same age. We are both women and currently 25 years old. She is only 5 days younger than me, and her family rented a floor on my parents' house when we were toddlers. So we basically did everything together and spent all of our days together until we turned 5. When her family bought an apartment in another city. Since we had a very strong connection, almost codependent, it was very difficult for us to get used to not living together, and 2 years later, we have made an agreement with our parents that we will visit each other each weekend, and during the summer break, she will spend 1 week at our place, and I will spend the other week at their place, and we will basically exchange like that until the end of the summer break. This went on for years. Since we were spending all of our free time together, by the time we turned 10 or 11, we have already exhausted all of our adventure ideas in the backyard. Tree climbing, building a tree house, setting up tents, camping in the backyard, etc. And we really needed something new, so we have decided to go fishing together every Friday on the river near my house. It's about a 20-minute walk. Now, of course, we had no tools needed for a true fishing experience. We had a butterfly net that we would place in the water, and on a good day, we would catch a dozen of tiny fish with it. That was enough for our restaurant game. We would come back home, bake the fish under the sunlight, and then serve it, and decorate it in plastic plates that we would later serve to our imaginary customers. We've done this for weeks and always made sure we were safe while doing it. We never actually got into the river. And that wasn't difficult since it was a very peaceful neighborhood. We call it the Yellow Bridge. And there was usually no one else at the river at the time that we were there. But one day it went different. Very different. How I remember it. A couple of days ago, the memory of this encounter suddenly spilled into my mind. We were either 10 or 11 years old, and it was a Friday. She was at our place that week, so we took the butterfly net and went fishing on the river. We were alone, sitting under a large willow tree next to the river. Suddenly, a man showed up from nowhere. He was standing a couple meters away from us. He had a blackish hair with plenty shades of gray, so I'm guessing he was in his late 40s or early 50s. He had a dark blue t-shirt, a little smudged on the collar. He asked us what we were doing, and we said we were fishing. He continued walking back and forth on that part of the shore, now under the Yellow Bridge. The shore itself was at least 500 miles long. He could have gone anywhere, but he stayed where we were at. Then he came a little closer and we got up. He told us he was having issues with his wife, and we just nodded our heads, trying to avoid the conversation and follow the don't talk to strangers rule. We didn't ask him anything. He took a flip phone out of his pocket and opened it in front of us.
I have to show you my wife,
he said. Okay, we replied. When he found what he was looking for, he came even closer and turned the phone towards us. It was a picture of a completely naked woman sitting in a chair with her legs spread. We just nodded. He then proceeded to show us more pictures, and it was quite clear that this wasn't his wife because the pictures weren't of the same woman. But all of them were naked, from head to toe, with their legs spread or in other very suggestive positions. Now that I think of it, the quality of the images, the fashion, and the aesthetic could be described as pornographic content from the 70s. It could be that he took the pictures from some old magazine, or had them sent by someone. I remembered I looked at my cousin and mouthed, "It's not his wife," and she nodded.
Isn't she beautiful?
He asked. She is, I replied, and my cousin nodded. We then remembered that we had left her net in the river, so we went back to the willow tree and reached for the net. He was standing there, in the same spot as before, looking at his phone. He then showed us a very low-quality picture of 2 naked men and another naked woman. This picture actually looked like pictures taken with a flip phone camera.
This is me.
He said and pointed at one of the men in the picture. We just nodded and said we had to go home. He then said the words that have been haunting me for days now.
You think my wife is beautiful? She thinks you're beautiful too. She'd love to meet you. Come with me to meet her. We can play together.
No, we have to go home, I replied.
You little party breaker. Maybe your friend doesn't want to go home. Come on, I want to play with you.
He said and turned to my cousin. No, I really want to go home, my cousin replied. This is where the details of the memory stop. What I remember next is him giving up, just not being there anymore, and us leaving, giggling and laughing as we walked away, and mocking his voice and his tone on our way back home. But I found it weird that only after so many years have I remembered this situation, and I've brushed it off as a potential dream or false memory. But since his words kept echoing in my head, I called my cousin and described my memory word for word as I've described it here, and she said that it did happen, just slightly different from how I've remembered it. How my cousin remembers it. It happened. All the details are correct. But once she told him she really wanted to go home, he was way too close and we were scared to start running or turn our backs since we thought he could catch us. So we stayed there for a while and kept pretending like he was not there. We played with our catch, the tiny fish in the bucket, filled with water, and talked about our fathers who work in the police. Obviously it was a lie. Her father is a forest ranger, and mine works in IT, and how they're so strong that they could kill a man with one punch. The man didn't believe our exaggerated story, and he kept walking in circles around us. Not too close. But he did keep an eye on us the entire time, and we waited, and waited, and waited. And at one point he went into the bushes behind us to take a piss. This is when we got up and started running. We ran across the bridge and kept running until we got to the part of the neighborhood where there are lots of houses. When we were already close to my house, I stopped in the middle of the road and said that my legs won't move. So she helped me get down on the side of the road, and we sat there until I felt better. Today, I know that what I experienced was a state of shock. Once I felt better, we went home, threw away the fish, and decided to never go fishing again. We never told this to our parents because we knew that what happened had something to do with sex, and at the time we thought everything related to sex is shameful and shouldn't be talking about. She said she is surprised that I thought that this was a dream, and that I didn't remember it until now, since I've had such an extreme reaction, and she had PTSD from that event. Even today, she's not going alone anywhere and is terrified whenever someone mentions the big yellow bridge. This story was when I was younger and braver and kind of did stupid stuff without thinking. It's a wild ride, but it's all true. I used to work at a pizza shop down the street from 2 p.m. until they closed. I usually didn't get off until 11 or so at night. I had a car but was close enough to walk, so I did that most days to save gas. This particular night I was doing my usual thing, jamming to one of my playlists, tired but happy to have a good job, and just generally happy with the way my life was going. Up ahead, about a block from my place, I see an attractive guy in dark clothing walking, but not with a purpose really. He was taller than me, maybe 5'10", 6 foot or so, and had shaggy brown hair. The closer I got to him, the more I could tell he was really good looking. Like, even in the dark of night, I was starting to get excited. His features kind of escape me now, but I do remember his hair and his thick eyebrows. I took an earbud out, and because I'm from a dangerous city and never really cared about stranger danger, I decided to talk to him, maybe even flirt a bit. Hey, how's your night going?
It's good. Just looking to get drunk.
Oh, I can help you with that. I've got a mini bar at my place. I just live down the street. That was not verbatim how the conversation went. During the walk back to my place, I got no red flags from this guy. He seemed totally normal, and I was honestly thinking, wow, Just through sheer luck, I met this super hunky guy, and he seems cool and fun. I was beside myself, really. So, we get to my apartment and on the second floor. I jump into host mode and offer him to have a seat and make himself comfortable. The apartment is about 640 square feet, so it's very small. Except for the bathroom, you could see the rest of my apartment from any area. I head to the kitchen, and while I'm pouring drinks, I glance over back at him. It was then that I noticed the first red flag. As I was asking him questions, he is more delayed with his answers. Especially more so than he just was on our walk there. It was just odd to me. I go back over to the couch, pass him his drink, and sit down next to him. So, what do you do for work? I asked.
Oh, I'm not here for sex.
He puts his drink down on the table. What do you mean? I'm not after sex either. He stands up.
What you got?
He asks me. His nice guy vernacular and friendly face are now gone. I'm having a hard time processing what he means by this.
I said, what you got?
The second I stand up, he pushes me back. I fly across the room, hitting the floor, but not hard enough to pass out or anything. I get right back up, but he's already grabbed my laptop and my work bag. As I start towards him, he cuts around me and makes his way towards the front door. I'm right behind him when he makes it outside. I manage to grab hold of him and we tussle again in front of the door. Now I shout out, calling on help from the neighbors. It's late at night, so no one comes out. I'm shouting, "Please help! I'm being robbed!" The thing is, he has my laptop. It's not just any laptop. I hate to admit it, but my entire life was on that laptop at the time. Important photos that I did not have backed up. Thousands of dollars of music programs. Video gaming programming stuff for a development team I helped. Really expensive software, etc. It was, in my mind, irreplaceable. I give chase down the stairs across the dog park, and as I start to gain on him, we tussle again, and the only thing I can focus on is my laptop. I knew that I had to, at any cost, get my laptop back. That was absolutely all I cared about. Somehow I get a grip on my laptop. I tug at it again, and I guess he decides I'm not worth all of the struggle. He gets up and starts to take off again. I now realize he still has my work bag. It has my cell phone and my wallet with my license, debit card, AAA card, etc. in it. I take off towards him again, and this time he shouts back at me.
Follow me, and I'll stab you again.
This makes me stop in my tracks, and he gets away. Underneath the street lamp along the sidewalk, I immediately inspect myself. Was I stabbed? No way. There's no way. Then I see blood running down my leg. I see blood on my arm. 2 places where he got me good. I'm scared, but the blood makes it look worse than it is. I decided that's enough. I got my laptop, and that's all I really wanted anyway. I hobble back home and get inside and lock the door. I called the cops using my neighbor's friend's phone the next day and filed a police report explaining the situation, showing the stab wounds and declining medical services. I can't afford that, and I was fine, all things considered. So all that guy got was a crappy cell phone and a wallet with like $30 to $40 in it. The cop called my friend back several days later and said that they were not able to find the guy and that he would keep me posted. This was years ago, so I don't know where the robber is now, but I have every electronic thing of importance backed up on multiple drivers to this day. A few years back, when I was around 18, I entered a very rebellious phase in my life. I have always been a prodigy child. Always did as I was told, never stayed out late, didn't smoke, didn't drink, scored all the highest in all of my classes. All my family, my friends, and my friends' families thought I was the perfect kid. But then, something changed. I was on a lot of medication due to my health, and I started going through bouts of depression. I started acting up like never before. I stopped going to school, I would stay in bed all day, didn't talk to anyone, and then slowly I started talking to strangers online. Initially, it was just talking to them online. I would talk to a few people till I found something interesting. Would dedicate all my time talking to them until they no longer held my interest, and then moved to the next person. This went on for about a year. Then I eventually started meeting these people in person. Most of these meetings were sexual, and I was very reckless. I slept around with more people than I'd like to admit. And regardless of my lack of concern for my own safety, I somehow never met anyone that had any evil intentions. We'd meet a couple times, do the dirty, and that was that. Till I met this one guy. I was talking to a couple of guys at the time. I wasn't in any sort of relationship, just being a hoe. So this guy starts talking to me and asks me about my hobbies, my interests, what I do. I told him I do not smoke or drink, and he was shocked. I told him it wasn't that I'd never done it. I'd tried, but just felt like it wasn't my thing. We talked for a couple of weeks. I ended up talking about how I've been going through depression, and at first, he just listened. Eventually, he started telling me I should try smoking, that it would help me relieve anxiety and stress, and I always turned it down. But he was relentless. After a month or so of talking online, we decided to meet. We had never had any sort of sexual conversation or anything, so we were just going to meet as friends. I was supposed to meet another guy, an acquaintance, for something that I needed, so I adjusted to the online chat guy that we meet briefly for lunch, and then he can drop me off to the other guy's place. He agreed, and we decided on where and when to go. The day we were supposed to meet, we met at a local cafe. We had brunch, and then I got in his car for him to drop me off at the place I had to go. It was a good 45-minute drive, so I put on some songs and decided to relax. 5 minutes into the drive, he offered me a cigarette. I declined. He insisted and kept insisting until I gave up and agreed. I opened the box and there was only one cigarette in there. I told him it was his last one and asked if he was sure he wanted me to smoke it, since he would have enjoyed it more than I. He said yes. I took the cigarette out and there was something odd about it. It didn't look like it was store-bought. It rather looked like it had been rolled by hand. But then again, I had never smoked enough cigarettes to be sure. So I lit it and smoked it. I couldn't smoke even half of it. It made me implacably nauseous. So I gave up halfway through and offered it to him. Instead of smoking it, he put it out and threw it away. I thought it was weird, but assumed he probably didn't want to smoke while driving. 30 minutes into the ride, I started to feel very sick. My whole body was shaking, I was extremely nauseous, and I could barely keep my eyes open. I kept telling him I wasn't feeling good and that maybe we should go to the nearest ER instead of where we were going. But he kept telling me to relax and lay back. Everything about that ride felt off. I told him to stop the car and drop me off wherever we were. He refused. All I could think of was pulling out my phone and calling the police. When he noticed that I was doing, he immediately stopped the car and I got out. I couldn't stand, so I sat on the roadside and called the guy I was supposed to visit. He immediately drove to where I was and picked me up, took me to his place, where I threw up all over his living room multiple times. For the next hour and a half, I just laid on the couch, my whole body shaking and constantly throwing up. The guy brought me water, gave me some electrolytes, and kept insisting on going to the hospital, but I refused. I had no idea what I had smoked, but I was sure it wasn't just plain old cigarettes. I was scared that if it had been some illegal drug, and if the hospital caught on, I would get into trouble. And I absolutely did not want my parents to find out what I'd been up to. So I laid there, kept throwing up and letting whatever that shit was get out of my system. All these years later, I'm now married to the guy who picked me up from the roadside and helped me through an insanely embarrassing time. Oh, and to the guy that laced my cigarette, let's not meet. This story takes place about 5 days ago. I'm still shaken up over it. I'm a 19-year-old female, and my parents and I packed up our U-Haul and made the long drive to our new home up north from our small and dinky apartment in Central Florida. I can't lie, I was very excited about this move. Attending college in the spring, finally getting to start my dream career, and so many other things I couldn't or didn't get to do in Florida. On the first night of our drive, we stopped at a hotel in what appeared to be a shady area. It was kind of scary as it was set up right outside of a closed-down gas station with boards and graffiti written all over them. From my parents' experiences and what I've seen on TV, these aren't the types of places you want to go lurking around in. My dad, who's usually very calm and collected, was on edge the whole night since the door to our room didn't close all the way. We had to prop one of the hotel chairs against the door and use the deadbolt to have even the slightest bit of comfort. I thought it couldn't get much worse than that, but I was so wrong. On the second night, we stopped in a small town in North Carolina. We had our 2 cats with us, so we had to find a hotel that was pet-friendly. We came across one of those hotels and booked a room for the night. While my parents were making sure nothing shifted in the U-Haul, I sat in the passenger seat of my mom's car with my little buddy trying to calm him down. He seemed more agitated than normal. About half an hour after pulling into the parking lot, we grabbed the cats and our essentials. Emotions were running high, so we were all on edge about getting into our new home the next day or two, depending on the amount of sleep we got. We loaded our things into a cart and approached the hotel's side door. My mom pulled out the key card, and it took a while for the door to finally unlock. But the second we heard it click, a woman started yelling at us. We all looked up and saw her frantically running towards us. Her voice was frantic. The panic in her voice still sends shivers down my spine every time I think about it. She wore a long, dark blue jacket. Her hair was in a messy ponytail that was tucked inside her hoodie. She either looked really tired, or like she hadn't slept in a year, or she had gone through something horrible. She was panting, muttering the words, "Call 911! Call 911! There's something wrong with my baby!" There was no child with her, nor did we see any kids in sight. My initial thought was that maybe there was a kid near the front of the building that was seriously hurt, or there was a car accident. We were too busy unloading to hear the collision. The woman kept telling us to call 911, but my mom told her she didn't have her phone on her. I always carry mine on me, and me being the kind-hearted person I try to be, I offered to call for her. But the moment I pulled out my phone, my dad snatched it out of my hand. The lady then said, "It's really bad. You need to come and see." My mom told her she didn't want to see and that we should go inside so the lady could go to the front desk and get help. At first, she was screaming, No, I don't need their help. I need your help." But my mom kept insisting that we go inside. At this point, my little buddy was whining and clawing at his pet carrier, trying to either get out or attack this lady. My boy might look like a sweet fuzzball, but if provoked, he's a scratching machine. The lady took one look at him and attempted to reach for him, saying, Yeah, let's get the babies inside." The way she said that was fucking creepy. This time she sounded like she was on drugs or had bad intentions. I scooped up my cat before she could touch him, and we led her to the front desk, where she told the hotel worker the same story she told us. The hotel worker tried to calm her down, and while the lady was distracted, my parents and I walked towards the elevator and started getting inside. As I looked back at the lobby, I saw the woman staring at us, her eyes full of anger now. Then she started charging at us, and before I even had the chance to react, my mom pushed me and my fur baby into the elevator, them standing in front to protect me. I could see the woman still running towards us as the elevator was closing. I remembered the small screen near the elevator in the lobby, showing which floor the elevator was heading to. So to stop this crazy lady from harassing us all night, we pushed all the floor buttons and we stopped on every floor. First, the second, the third, the fourth, then the fifth. After the fifth floor, we pressed the button back to our original floor and quickly piled into the room. Silence. My heart was pounding the entire time. My body started shaking at what just happened. As I got my cat out of the carrier, I heard my mom and dad talking about that lady. My dad speculated that maybe she had a mental illness or was on drugs, whereas my mom said she could have been a trafficker with the way that she was trying to get us to come with her and see the supposed situation. That's when my heart broke. I try so hard to see the good in people, but at the same time, I try to keep my best distance I can. But this was the first time someone ever approached me. I was so gullible to almost believe her story. My guard had slipped. I tried to hold back my guilt and fear as best as I could, but I ended up breaking down. My mom hugged me, saying everything was going to be okay, but no matter how many times she and Dad kept saying that, my body continued shaking and my paranoia lasted throughout the night. Even at the slightest creak, I shot up from the bed and looked out at the peephole, thinking the lady had found us. Luckily, she wasn't there. That night, we all decided we were going to get up around sunrise and reach home before nightfall. No more hotel stops, no more creepy people, and no more shady areas. As we checked out the next morning, the same employee from last night was there, and we asked her what happened after we got into the elevator. The worker told us that the crazy lady left in a huff, her hands clenched into fists. But then, the worker revealed a detail that my mind keeps going back to. When she turned to go after us, she saw a syringe in that crazy lady's jean pocket. I don't know if she had already used it or was planning to use it on me and my family. It makes me wonder what the outcome would have been had my parents not been there, and if I had given the lady my phone instead of offering to call for her. Would she have sold us into trafficking? Would she have robbed us while we were injected with whatever she was on? Anyway, we made it to our new house 2 days ago, but the fear of that night still eats away at me. It goes to show that no matter how panicked and frightened someone may sound or act, you truly don't know if they are genuine trouble, or if they had bad intentions after gaining a random stranger's trust. Please be careful out there, guys. I, unfortunately, had to learn the hard way that not everyone in this world is a good person. I'm just happy to still be alive and safe. I hope I never see that crazy lady again.
This all happened a handful of years ago when I, male, 22, was 16 years old. Unlike my siblings, who my parents spoil with rides to high school each morning, I, being the oldest child, had to take the bus every morning. The bus stop wasn't too far from our house, so I didn't mind. But that 10-minute walk often became a 5-minute sprint when I couldn't force myself to roll out of bed in time on those early mornings. The bus stop pulled from our whole neighborhood, really, and there were always new faces coming out to catch the bus for the first time, but a good amount of regulars, too. We'd all ride the bus together in that half-asleep state teenagers are in on the way to a bloody 8 a.m. math class. But the rides home were always full of happy chatter, with everyone just glad that day at school was done and we could go home to watch baseball or play video games or whatever we wanted. I had a close group of friends in high school, many of whom I'm still quite close with today. And we obviously had a group chat called The Boys, which we'd use to talk anything from basketball to school drama. It was Christmas break 2017 when it happened. On Christmas Day, I'm at my grandparents' place, opening presents and eating a feast with the whole fam, when my buddy R texts the group, "Did you guys hear? Talk about something I didn't want to do on Christmas. That day is for my family, not for talking about some school drama with the lads." Then he sends an article from our local newspaper. "Teen suspected of murder. Police commencing manhunt," sprawls across the top of the page. I'm thinking, who the heck could this be, and why the hell is R sending us this on Christmas Day? That's when I see his face. I almost don't recognize the kid because the look he's giving in the photo is him without glasses, which I was used to seeing him with. Then it hit me. I ride the bus with this kid damn near every day. He's sat next to me before. Heck, he's in my English class, and we're currently learning Shakespeare together. The police found him hiding in a Walmart parking lot just outside of town. Apparently, he'd stabbed his own mother over 40 times in the back and let her body rot upstairs for a week before he told a friend, who immediately called the police. The whole school was pretty shook up by the whole thing, and I remember the teachers all having a nervous look for the few weeks back from the break. So the kid who rode the bus with me, learned English with me, and killed his own mom. Let's not meet again.
Okay, so to start this, I live in a very rural town in Australia. I have a close-knit group of about 4 to 5 friends, and we hang out all the time. On this specific day, I was at my friend's house. About 2 days before this, her family came home, and all the doors were wide open, yet nothing was taken. This family is not one to leave their doors open, specifically in the town where crime runs rampant. On the day that I was over, let's call these 2 friends Mike and Alyssa, not real names. Me and Mike were over at Alyssa's, just hanging out on our phones, when the front door banged open. We all looked at each other, then brushed it off as Wynn slamming the door. In hindsight, Wynn would not have been able to reach this door, as it was in a little covering. I don't know how to explain it, but you walk upstairs, there's a little room, and there's the front door. Maybe 2 minutes after, the 2 sliding back doors slammed very loudly. We again brushed it off, to not scare ourselves. We are kind of dumb. Sorry. But then, we heard a loud noise inside the house, and footsteps running around their noisy wooden floor. This is where alarm bells started firing in my head. I was thinking about how someone had already been there, and wondering if this was the same person/people. We jumped up, and me and Alyssa held the bathroom door closed. Her room doesn't have a lock. Alyssa suggests that we call the police. I didn't think it was a good idea, but as I'm holding the door, someone starts running and slams into her door. At this point, it was definitely time to call the police. They pick up, try to talk to Alyssa, a little difficult because she is bawling her eyes out. Eventually, the operator understood, and within less than 2 minutes, police are at the door. The police officers were very kind and just asked about the situation before saying,
"We found the kid."
I thought they meant the person that broke in, so I asked them about the kid. The police looked confused and said,
"The missing 5-year-old?"
We had no clue that there was a missing child on the loose. The police officer said there was about 40 cars looking for this kid, and many police knocking on doors to ask if anyone had seen her. While I think the police were kind, their reasoning for the break-in was crazy. They said,
"It was probably a police officer running in and looking for the kid."
We all looked confused, and then he realized what he said and backtracked. He said,
"They should have announced themselves, though."
Pretty scary experience with the police officers trying to calm us down, but after talking about it with my friends, whoever broke in probably saw Alyssa's mom leaving the house with 2 teens in the back, so they thought the house was empty. Alyssa has a brother, so they all together have 3 in the house. But on this day, her brother had a friend over, and they were driving somewhere. So please, robber who frequents my friend's house, never come back.
So this happened a while back. I was probably around 10 or 11 years old, meaning my brother Alex was around 8 or 9 years old. We were walking home from the bus, which takes about 7 minutes to do, when I noticed something was off. I didn't see anything at first, but I just knew that something was wrong. So my brother and I start walking home, as we're the only 2 who get off the bus at our stop. This blue and silver beat-up truck drives past us, and I think nothing of it. It never slowed down or stopped. It just kept going. Alex and I were holding hands, as my grandmother always told me to do with him, as he's my baby brother, and I want nothing to happen to him. Nothing happens at first, but then the same truck drives around again, driving our way this time. There was a cul-de-sac at the end of our road. It was driving slower this time and went up the road and turned out of sight. Now Alex and I were nearing the 3-way intersection that connected the cul-de-sac road to the other side road. Right off the main road the man just drove down. I happened to look down the street and see the truck driving, real slow, down the street towards us again. I knew we had to run. I knew there was no other option. I knew that if we didn't, my brother and I would not be safe. I don't know how I knew this, but I did. As soon as we passed a house that blocked us from view, I turned to Alex and spoke to him exactly 4 words. No questions, just run. And we did. In our driveway, which is about 100 feet long, by the way, there's a row of bushes and pine trees that divide our home from the next door neighbor. I dragged him in there and told him to be quiet, and I'd explain later. I watched as the same truck drove down and around the cul-de-sac again before coming to a stop right in front of our house. I had to hold my brother's mouth shut because he was crying, and I was scared that whoever was following us would hear him and hurt us. I was more worried for him than for myself at this point. I was in fight or flight mode. I was his big brother. I had to protect him. I looked at him and said that the truck was following us, and I told him to not be scared. I said I wouldn't let anyone hurt him, and it seemed to calm him down a little. After what felt like hours, but was probably only minutes, the door to the truck opened, and out came the man. He was tall, skinny, and messy. Short hair covered by a torn baseball cap, ripped jean shorts, and a puke green tank top. He entered our yard and looked around a bit. Alex and I were still in the bushes, and I was trying to find a way to get to our house safely without getting this dude's attention. The guy left after what felt like forever and entered his car. He started it and drove away slowly. I waited a few minutes to make sure he was gone before turning to my brother and saying, "We need to run. When I count to 3, we're going to run behind the house to the back door, okay?" He agreed, and we waited a few more seconds before I started counting. I still didn't have a good feeling about this, but I knew we had to move. I started counting. As soon as I hit 3, we booked it across our driveway and into the front yard to go around the house. As soon as we left our spot, I heard it, the sound of accelerating. He saw us. He was waiting for us to leave. He chased us up our driveway as we ran around the side. I grabbed Alex's hand and practically dragged him around the house and made him run ahead to the garage door to see if it was locked while I searched for my house key, about 20 feet from me. The garage door was open. I swear to God I saw this man round the opposite corner of the house that we did as I entered the house. We entered and I slammed the door shut, locking it and deadbolting it. I didn't stop running until I opened the house door and ran downstairs with Alex, screaming our safe word. My grandmother made a safe word for us that was a normal everyday word that we could use if we were in danger. Just had to scream it, basically. It woke my aunt, who worked the night shift and was sleeping. We told her everything, and she stayed up with us until my grandmother got home. We called the police, and that was my first ever interaction with an officer. The man was never caught. To this day, I don't know what he wanted, but I'm sure it wasn't good. I'm just glad my grandma drilled stranger danger into my head. I don't know where my brother or I would be right now if she hadn't. So, to the messy man in the blue and silver truck, let's not meet again.
If you have any stories that you would like to see narrated here on the channel, please go into the subreddit and submit them there. The link is in the description. Also, we do have a Discord now. Thank you so much to Creepy Clown Girl for putting it together for us. You can come hang out with me and other narrators and get the party started, get spooky with us. That link is also in the description as well. And last but certainly not least, I wanted to introduce the King of Panic. We have a lot of brand new content coming soon with him in it. He is very talented. He does not have his own channel. He just kind of wants to be a part of this. So if you would like to hear from him once you start and you like his voice, stay tuned here. And as always, thank you for visiting the Panic Room. You have successfully made it to the next portion of your tour. Please stay tuned for your next prompt. Click the like button and subscribe to receive notifications for when the next portion of your tour is ready to join. Thank you for watching. Don't let the panic drown you.